beings are in me, but I am not in them. Text number 5. Nachamatstani bhutani pasya me yogamaishwaram bhuta brinna cha bhutasto mamatma bhuta bhavanaha. Translation. And yet everything that is created does not rest in me. Behold my mystic opulence. Although I am the maintainer of all living entities, and although I am everywhere, still myself is the very source of creation. Text number 6. Yata kashastito nityang vayu sarvatra go mahan tata sarvani bhutani matstani pittadariya. Translation. As the mighty wind blowing everywhere always rests in ethereal space, know that in the same manner all beings rest in me. Text number 7. Sarva bhutani konteya prakritim yanti mamekam skalpakshaye punastani kalpado vrishajam yaham. Translation. O son of Kunti, at the end of the millennium, every material manifestation enters into my nature, and at the beginning of another millennium, by my potency, I again create. Text number 8. Prakritim swamavashtabhya vrishajami puna punaha bhutagramam imam kritsnam avasham prakritir vishad. Translation. The whole cosmic order is under me. By my will it is manifested again and again, and by my will it is annihilated at the end. Text number 9. Nachamatmani tani bhurmani nivananti dananjaya udasina vadasinam asaktam teshu karmasu. Translation. O Dhananjaya, all this work cannot bind me. I am ever detached, seated as though neutral. Text number 10. Mayadhyakshena prakriti suyate sacharacharam hetunanena konteya jagad viparivartate. Translation. This material nature is working under my direction, O son of Kunti, and it is producing all moving and unmoving beings. By its rule, this manifestation is created and annihilated again and again. Text number 11. Avajananti mamudha manushim tanumashritam parambhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Translation together. Fools deride me when I descend in the human form. They do not know my transcendental nature and my supreme dominion over all that be. Text number 12, the last text tonight. Moghasha moga karmano moga jnana vichetasaha rakshasim asurim chaiva prakritim mohinim shritaha. Translation. Those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demonic and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their furtive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. Okay, so back to text number 2. So nice to have a full house tonight. Thank you everybody for coming and hearing the glories of Krishna through this medium of Bhagavad Gita. So we'll read, there's a few really important verses in this sequence of verses. So we'll try to touch bases on all of them. In this first verse, Krishna is separating this knowledge from all other forms of education. And if one is, it's kind of repeating what the purport is. It's a long purport, but there's so much kinds of education that we can cultivate or we can gather. gain a degree in, right? So if in the academic field, you got the sciences, and they call the STEM, the STEM area, which is like all the science, engineering, those kind of fields. And then you have the psychology, you have the sociology, which is kind of like these what are they called? Not humanitarian. Anyway, it's been a long time since I've been around the academic world. But anyway, we understand there's this arts, fine arts. There's, things that have to do with the body, physiology, medicine, so many fields of knowledge. Like, it's almost unlimited what you can educate yourself about in the material world. And unfortunately, because Krishna is not like focused as the goal of understanding Krishna through these fields, then basically all of this education is more or less a waste of energy to accumulate, a waste of time, all your labor. All of your labor, which means, all the tests you take and all the homework you do, it actually has no real benefit in your eternal life. So therefore we say that it's all useless. But if it can be connected through, in the highest sense it's useless. It might be useful for your career that you have to have in this material world, but from the spiritual point of view, the absolute point of view, it's more or less useless. Unless you're actually having the understanding that Krishna is a source of all of this, and he's the true object of knowledge, which means that in every study, every field, Krishna has to be the object of achieving like knowledge of him. Otherwise, it's disconnected from Krishna, and therefore it actually has no real benefit in life, in our real life, our spiritual life. So somebody can study the intricacies of the political field, like how the government works, how different governments works, democracy, anarchy, Platonic governments, like so many different kinds of governments and ways of ruling you can learn. And people speculate, and they have so many different ideas and theories how to rule properly according to their own moral codes or rational understanding. But Krishna has a system which is perfect. So it may be helpful to know how to, know history and how to rule in these various ways. But Krishna has given a system in which he actually explains like what is the most scientific, which is this Chaturvarna Maya Shastram, the way to properly rule society is through the Varnashram system. So if we're seeing Krishna as divorced from these fields of knowledge, then we may gain some important information about how this world operates or how we can function in this world. But more or less, if it's not directed towards trying to understand Krishna, then it's not a good use of time and energy. Just think, some people study like many years. A PhD is like 8 or 10 years or so in school. And it's very laborious. You probably have to have a job while you're going to school, pay off your loans. You might have loans later, so you have this debt. Now you got to work and pay off the loans. So it requires a great amount of labor and austerity. So I'm not discouraging going to school and getting a career like that, because it's pretty much how the system's set up in our society. But I'm just saying that if people are not connecting their knowledge with trying to understand Krishna, or utilizing their knowledge to serve Krishna, then it's not recommended. And we see how people's lives are and their mental state when they do just divorce knowledge of Krishna and God from these fields. And basically, there is a lack. We've been hearing the Bhagavatam in the morning that there's actually a lack of good qualities that's developed through this knowledge that people get in today's modern educational institutions, because there's practically no knowledge about the self and about God. If there is knowledge about God, then it's taught in a very indirect way, or a very historical way, or a mythological way. And but we hear about science quite prevalently, the Big Bang. But God is more or less out of the picture, and therefore people they have misconceptions of life. People in general are not interested in understanding the absolute truth or the purpose of life or who I am. And therefore, they do not begin their human existence. Because the human life starts with inquiring into these questions. Who am I? What is the absolute truth? Is there God? This is like the first step of human life, to approach human life. So more or less everybody is educated to enjoy the material world. So anyway, Krishna says, this knowledge which he is speaking is the king of education, the Raja Vidya, and it really is. And what he speaks about here in the Bhagavad Gita is the essential knowledge for us to understand who we are, and what is this world, what is my connection to it, and how do I become happy in life. So he answers all of these points. And the Acharyas give elaborate commentary, which we can basically, we can free ourselves from any misconceptions of spiritual life and of reality through the philosophy of Bhagavad Gita. So it's really all here in the Bhagavad Gita. As far as the philosophy of life, so he also says it's the most secret of all secrets. And it's actually an open secret. I remember a devotee was here and I said it's an open secret, and he just he couldn't understand. He's like, an open secret? That doesn't make sense. Do you remember that? Yeah. It was funny. So an open secret, because it's out there, it's here, it's right here. And we may say it too. We may tell everybody. But the true, really understanding this knowledge and education, even though it's freely out there, people may not understand it, so then they don't see the value in it. So the secret is, once you have faith and at least consider that Krishna is the Supreme Being and giving us knowledge which we need to be happy, then we can experience the confidential nature of the knowledge. So that's an open secret. So it's secretive in the sense that we we may miss it. We may overlook its true essence or true value. Right? Because if you keep your secret, then mostly it's because of there's some value to it, or you want to keep it, this cherished thing inside. Don't want to tell others. So if people understand your secret, then you might feel embarrassed or whatever. But if people understand this secret, this knowledge, then everybody benefits. So it is the purest knowledge. Why is it the purest knowledge? Because it's coming from Krishna himself. And Krishna is infallible. He cannot make any mistakes. So therefore, this knowledge is free from mistakes, which you cannot say that about other fields of knowledge. Like if you take, for example, science. Today, modern science, there's the scientific theory and the way to come to a conclusion of a certain subject matter. But basically, it's more or less, at least in a general sense, limited to sense perception or to empirical knowledge, what we can see and observe in this world. But we know that if we're actually approaching something which is beyond the senses, then there has to be some different rules at play than just what we can observe and test and make conclusions off of. So it has some limitations. So, and what they can also, there is also mistakes within that, because you have human beings doing the experiments, and mistakes could happen, at any point. And also we know that we could also misperceive particular things. And we know that scientific conclusions, they change over time. And more or less there's this understanding that we can have a certain percentage of, we can't really for sure know something, but at least if we have a certain percentage that this actually might be true, then it's good enough, for us to conclude and base a theory based off of it. But Krishna is speaking directly, even points that science today is coming to gradually. But Krishna has revealed the Vedas, which are not changing, and there's knowledge about so many various subjects, and it's not changing actually. And when we study from a scientific point of view, we actually study what the Vedas say, then we see that it has real like gross effects, or it has a lot of validity to it. Like the example of the cow dung, it's a stool of an animal, but it actually has great antiseptic properties. So this is a point that the Vedas mention. And when we study it through science, then we actually see like, wow, it does have all these wonderful benefits. So this knowledge, it gives direct perception of the self by realization. It is the perfection of religion. It is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. So this is what really gets me about Krishna consciousness, and how it changed my conviction about God and spiritual life, is that the practice of Krishna consciousness, it gives direct perception of the self by realization. Pratyaksha agavamam dharmyam. and it's the perfection. So pratyaksha means that what we perceive, what we can directly experience. And it's not just limited to empirical experience, but also metaphysical experience. And so when you practice Krishna consciousness, especially chanting Hare Krishna, then you really get direct experience of the soul. You really experience Krishna and how these activities they were doing out of service to Krishna are actually of a higher quality, like of a more real experience than what we experience just doing mundane materialistic activities. So basically all of us have experienced that to some degree. We've had some experience of Krishna consciousness that through whatever practices we've done, that we feel like we're getting realization, and that realization and that experience is higher than what we experience in the material world. So therefore we look into it more. We try to endeavor more to find out more about it, to experience it more, to make some research and experiment into it, because it's giving us a happiness or satisfaction or interesting experience enough to where we want to follow up with it. And for some of us, it'll take us, this direct perception will take us, many years into practice of Krishna consciousness, and hopefully all of us, of course, we've begun the path. So you're going to have, if you go away from Krishna consciousness, you're going to immediately, at some point, be brought back to, whatever advancement you've made now. So we might, unfortunately, some of us might prolong the inevitable. And that's okay, but it is the best to just try to stay in Krishna consciousness and improve our devotional service day after day, year after year. So I'm sure you all have felt that way in other religions. You may have gotten knowledge about God, in certain ways, or about the soul, but never really felt like, you never really got the experience of it. It was just kind of like a lofty idea, or if it was philosophically a theoretical idea. And there wasn't, maybe you had some experiences, but it wasn't enough knowledge for you to actually change your life and adjust your activities so that you'll be able to be situated to experience it more. I tell this example, but I had an experience, particularly, it's really stuck with me, in junior high at a youth group, and we were singing to God, worshiping Christ through song together. And I had this like really deep experience of God. And that was like one of the first times, I think, at least in my adolescence, where I really got some realization, that was very deep. And I became disinterested in material sense enjoyment, at least for the time being. And so, that night was quite nice, and I accepted Christ in my heart for the, 10th time. You always think like, okay, it's going to work this time, I'm going to be transformed, accepting Christ in my heart. I did it many times, So, of course, it's good, because we should accept Krishna in our heart every day, It's a nice refreshment ritual. So I became disinterested in sense enjoyment. Of course, I was like 13, so 14. I was, 13, 8th grade. So, that age, it's pretty wild. Especially today's day and age. A lot of sense enjoyment happens in those early years. And so I was interested in pursuing God. But unfortunately, there was not a support system of a culture or a philosophy, a support system from a philosophy that actually allowed me to really get those experiences more and have knowledge to be like, okay, I need to free myself from this association, that association, like that. So more or less, religion today is based on ritual as the ends of, rituals are portrayed as the ends of spiritual life, meaning that you've attained the goal if you do some rituals. So this is an influence of the age of Kali. It's Kaitava Dharma, it's cheating religion. Because the rituals may help, or they do help, and they're important, but it's not the ends, it's actually the means to the goal, which is to get this pratyaksha, this direct experience of God. So, unfortunately, I didn't have that support system. And of course, I probably wasn't that sincere, because too much sense enjoyment at that age. Wasn't able to give it up. But I had some real deep experience. So if that was happening regularly from the purity of the practice of what I was doing, Christianity, then you become motivated to stick with it, So in Krishna consciousness, we are getting some experiences of Krishna, like especially on festival days where we're all together, we're all doing services together, and we have this mission of putting on a nice festival, and then the festival is really exciting and enlivening, and then we get this experience, like we might have felt this way, like, wow, yeah, this is really it, I feel so wholesome. And those experiences are really important to get. And they might happen through different activities. One might experience that more so through, kirtan together, or preaching, book distribution, or doing various services, or just being around devotees. So many ways in which we can really experience that. But the principle is to perform devotional service to Krishna, and then that mercy will come to where at some point it's like the spiritual world opens up in our heart, and we're just like, whoa, yeah, I want to give my life to Krishna. And that is the love awakening, because love is forever. Krishna prema, that means that we have love for Krishna, and when there is a glimpse of that love, then we want to give our lives, our whole being to Krishna, always and forever. So this is the perfection of religion, because you can get direct perception of the self, and your life will change. You will start to give up material enjoyment, at least gradually, because you're getting the realization that you're not the body, you're a spirit soul. So what does a spirit soul do? And these questions are all explained in Bhagavad Gita. And there's a whole philosophy, like how to live, how to act, how to live like a soul in this world, like this. So you can change your activities, you can be more in line with that, and then you'll get more and more deeper realization of it. So it's joyfully performed, and that is the sweetness of Krishna consciousness, is that we can perform Krishna consciousness, and it's very blissful, because that is the nature of reality. True reality is the activities bring about a sense of great happiness and bliss. Okay. Time's going by quick. So Krishna says in the next verse, text 3, those who are not faithful on the path of devotional service cannot attain me, O conqueror of foes, but return to birth and death in this material world. So faith is that thing which takes us all the way back to Godhead, all the way back to the spiritual world. Because, like I said, we're in a world where people are faithless in God. The culture is supporting faithlessness and anything spiritual, at least majority of the cultures of the world. And we are conditioned by our material desires to be faithless, because we've been conditioned to try to enjoy the material world separate from Krishna. And there's many problems with that. But so we might have times of turbulence in ourselves, trying to understand, should I really be doing this? Should I not? Is this really real? Is Krishna actually real? Is he not? What's all this work for? All this energy I'm spending on this, is it really worth it? And so we might have these doubts that come up. So in our times of lack of faith, if we've heard sufficiently the philosophy of Krishna consciousness, then we'll be checkmated. Our mind and intelligence will be checkmated. That yes, actually, there's no higher understanding. So we really have to understand the philosophy of Krishna consciousness. And at least if we're not at the ideal platform, which none of us are, we all fall short, except for maybe these really advanced devotees on the planet. But the point is that we should never give up the ideal, the proper understanding of an ideal standard. We should never become averse or dismissive of the ideal standard of Krishna consciousness, or ideal standard of how to be, which means we're a pure devotee, no material desires. We're following the process, 16 rounds, 40 good principles. We're doing all the detailed things, of the practice. We're being free from offense, right? It's a very high standard to get to. And we're not there. But if we always have it in our vision, like this is where I should be going towards this. And if we have faith in it, we have trust in Krishna's knowledge, and we have humility that, this really is the pure way to be, then we'll make progress. But if we become averse or dismissive, or we become faithless in Krishna's words and the standard of pure devotional service, for whatever reason, maybe because we're not there, or we can't do it, or it's too difficult or whatever, these feelings may come. But at least if we just have this faith that actually this is where I should be, but I'm not. I'm where I am, Basically, we have to accept where we are and then gradually try to make a plan to improve. And that's the wonderful thing about Krishna consciousness, actually, is that you can always make great improvement. There's always improvements to be made. And it's always satisfying to the utmost degree when we make improvements, like when we give up anger, or we give more, or if we give up greed more, or we give up envy more, then all these things that we're giving up that are holding us back from true Krishna consciousness, we become more free. And so we all have difficulties, but if we have faith in Krishna's words and we've heard sufficiently the philosophy, then we'll always be making nice progress. And then we can feel the depth of this knowledge and philosophy and practice. We can feel the depth of it, that it is actually truly worth pursuing and going deeper in. So, but those who are not faithful, so if you're in that state of not having faith in Krishna or his words, then things are going to be pretty difficult for you. Because not having faith in Krishna basically means that you're putting more faith into Maya, or the material world. And that is very troublesome, to have so much faith in the material world. So, there's some points about this. There's some philosophical points here about Krishna being the source of everything. He's pervading everything in his unmanifested form. All beings are in him, but he is not in them. So these are nice, explaining the position of Krishna very nicely. I wanted to get to a particular verse. Yeah, so this last verse is kind of in connection with what I've been speaking about. Text 12, those who are thus bewildered are attracted by demoniac and atheistic views. In that deluded condition, their hopes for liberation, their fruitive activities, and their culture of knowledge are all defeated. So, we have to get experience in Krishna consciousness so that we can have more faith. And applying the process gives us that direct perception of the self, and it becomes self-evident to us that this is real, this is worthwhile pursuing because I'm feeling happy, I'm feeling, purposeful, etc., etc. And then our faith increases more and more and more. And that's the whole process, is increasing our faith in Krishna. Because this world will throw at us so many different obstacles. And I used to hear this from one of a dear devotee to me. He used to speak about how his Guru Maharaj used to speak that Maya will get you at your faith in Krishna. So she attacks our faith. Because it's easy to enjoy them, it's easy to direct ourselves to enjoy the material world if we lose faith in the knowledge of Krishna consciousness. Right? Because it's so this knowledge is so radically different from whatever we hear elsewhere. Give up sense enjoyment, become a servant of God, like that. So if we start to lack faith, like, well, maybe this didn't happen, over 5,000 years ago. Maybe Krishna isn't God. I'm not experiencing Krishna in my life. This is all mythology. Then basically, what is the result of that? That we enjoy the material world. That's what it's going to lead to. In one way or the other. Because Krishna consciousness is so scientific that in every aspect of life and every practice, we're transcending the material world. We are becoming transcendental to the modes of nature. And all of the practices and ways how to do things are freeing ourselves from material activities which give us karma. If this were karma which binds us to this material world, good or bad. So a lack of faith in Krishna means we're putting more of our faith in Maya. So that is some things about faith, how we can develop faith. We have experience, we apply the process, we hear the knowledge, and it's a trusting thing. It's hard to trust now, We might have tried to put our trust in so many people in this material world in our lives. Right? I know I have, Even when I was very young, right? We've tried to trust, and that trust has been broken. Our hearts have been broken, and maybe some of us are lucky, didn't suffer so much heartache, headaches in the material world. But for the most part, our trust has been broken so many different times by people exploiting us or not following through with things. So it's actually hard to trust. Especially, it's hard to trust somebody that you're not seeing every day in person. Like I see Magadari almost every day. So it seems easy, okay, I see his activities, I see what he's doing, I can trust him, So trusting someone that we don't necessarily see physically every day, meaning trusting Krishna, that requires intelligence, philosophical understanding of how Krishna is operating in our life. And it also requires realization of Krishna, that when I'm doing something, and it's in accordance with the revelation of how things should be done, like a service that Krishna wants me to do, some service to him, especially chanting, then we can get realization of Krishna by actually following it. And we'll see that we are becoming more realized in the self, and by doing this service, so we can understand that the byproduct of pleasing Krishna is the experiences that we get, which are transcendental. Okay, so sorry if that was kind of all over the place. It's been a really hectic day. But are there any comments or questions? Yes, Dr. Jacob? I'll try to go pretty quick here.
Hare Krishna. Thanks for your nice class, Prabhu. I have a question about faith. So there's some... First, I was reading a little article about how they do a poll in the evangelical churches to see where people are at on certain levels. And one of them said that 50% of the members of the evangelical churches and all don't think that the Bible should be taken literally, even though that's their stance, is that the Bible should be taken literally. And so I think about that and the Srimad Bhagavatam and how, at first we might not understand the churning of the milk ocean, or all these like somewhat fantastical things.
Yeah.
And then like yesterday, Ananda was mentioning like the whole, since Eve ate the apple, now we're all sinful kind of thing. And so how do we like understand, or, because it's different. It's not like we're trying to use our intelligence also, and our intelligence says that, okay, we create our own bad reactions, not that someone else created our own bad reactions. Or you get what I'm kind of saying? Like something in another text might seem fantastic, but then in our text it also seems fantastic, but it actually happened. Like how we can say like that didn't happen in that text, but this is happening in our text.
How to know that's true, or have faith in it, or what?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there might be some similarities, like the flood, and there's also a flood that took place in the Vedic history. Well, yeah, the disciple succession is pretty. It's pretty practical and historically important. So it does require faith. I mean, we have to understand it philosophically, because it requires that, because we can't actually, it's not like we can go back in time right now and like directly perceive what's going on. But we can understand that we are having faith already in certain histories even of American history, that we have to have faith in whoever's presenting it, or the facts have been given properly, which is definitely debatable over time. So I would say, for me, what makes it real is what this knowledge, at least of philosophy, does here and now for me. Okay, yeah, I can think about all these, like, this happened and that happened before. Maybe that didn't happen. Maybe it did happen. But I know that if I follow the teachings of Bhagavad Gita and Krishna, then I'm getting like realization now. So it makes those things more real for me, and I would realistically have more faith in where this knowledge is coming from, that I'm actually experiencing these realizations. I have more faith in that system of knowledge than this other knowledge that's being given by this other text. And then you can understand it historically. Some people may have a simple mind, so it's easier just to accept things and not have so many doubts about it, or have so many, questions, inquiries. You might just accept it and be like, yeah, okay, that's what the Vedas say. Okay, it's fine. But some people require a little more research. Their intelligence may be more stronger in certain fields of knowledge. So then we might have to go into it, like studying the history of these particular things and seeing how it actually occurred. One devotee, Druta Karma, he's a Krishna conscious scientist. He said something really nice. He was having a discussion with a devotee who does internet debates with atheists, and he was explaining that, as devotees, we accept the Vedas as, the truth, especially Srimad Bhagavatam. So we don't necessarily look to science to gain faith that the Vedas are real, or like what they say is actually true. But we accept the Vedas even if it contradicts like the modern theories of science and how old the universe is, how old humans are, like that. And so he said that he tells people that, at these scientific circles, he kind of prefaces his presentations like that this might be against what modern theory says, but this is part of my, realization, my faith or whatever, my opinion that I accept this as the absolute truth, or this is real. And he said that basically like eliminates all questions afterwards that people would generally ask, like, how do you know this is true, this and that. Yeah, the point is that his point of view was that I'm accepting these because I have faith in the knowledge, and I'm accepting these actually happen, and I don't need to look to, or I'm not going to have faith in it when, I'm not going to like put my faith in it when it's proved by modern science, but I'm actually going to put all my faith in it now. Does that make sense?
Yes, that's really nice. And one other point that I was going to mention that Magadari Prabhu said on Sunday about this verse, because he brought the same verse up to text 9.3, Raju Vidya. He said that the Sanskrit language is so precise that it's like proof that it's not tampered, it's authoritative. Because so many of these other scriptures we might be reading are in English. And English is
yeah,
not so that nice of a language.
There's so many rules. That was a nice point.
Yeah.
I like that point. Okay. Sorry for going over time. Thank you. Hare Krishna. Thank you. We're actually concluding the Bhagavad Gita class now. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Sorry I was a little over time. I appreciate everybody's presence here. And there's a lot of exciting events coming up for us. Yeah. So we have a special guest coming next week. And hopefully we will be able to solidify the details in the next 2 days about like what Maharaj will actually do. He'll probably give some special classes and things. So we'll try to get those details as soon as possible. But yeah, it's very special. Nice things coming up. Okay, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai.